You know what nobody tells you about Social Security? It's not a retirement plan. It's a chess game. And most people don't even realize they're playing until the board is already set. Because somewhere around age 62, a quiet shift happens. A window opens. And what you do in that moment, whether you step through or stand still, can reshape the next 20 or 30 years of your financial life in ways you never saw coming. Here's something worth sitting with. The average American will make roughly 30,000 financial decisions over a lifetime. What to buy, where to invest, how much to save. But buried in that sea of choices, there's one decision that silently outweighs almost all the others. When to file for Social Security. And the truth is, most people who file at 62 don't do it on impulse. They've done the math. They've looked at their lives, not just their spreadsheets. And they've made a move that, on the surface, looks early. But underneath, is anything but. A recent study on retirement satisfaction found something fascinating. The number one regret among retirees wasn't filing too early or too late. It was not understanding enough before they decided. Not the math, not the rules, the full picture. That's what most people are missing. And that's exactly what I want to give you today. 9 hidden reasons that smart retirees use to make this decision. Reasons that go far beyond the standard advice. Reasons that might change how you see everything. And by the way, reason number 5 is the one most financial advisors will never bring up. So think of Social Security not as a savings account you're draining early, but as a chess game. You've got pieces on the board. Your age, your health, your debt, your tax situation, your family. Every move affects every other piece. And filing at 62 isn't sacrificing your queen. In the right position, it's an opening gambit that sets up everything else. Let me introduce you to Marcus. He ran an auto repair shop for 40 years. Good with his hands, honest with his customers, disciplined with his money. His final working year, he earned about $75,000. Solid, not extravagant. Now Marcus had 3 options. File at 62 and collect roughly $1,950 a month. Wait until 67, his full retirement age, and collect around $2,790. Or delay all the way to 70 and get approximately $3,460. On paper, the answer looks obvious. Wait longer, get more. Simple math. But Marcus didn't live on paper. He lived in the real world. A world with debts, health insurance gaps, and a wife who wanted to see the Grand Canyon before her knees gave out. And here's what most retirement advice gets wrong. It's built for an average person. Average health. Average income. Average family. But you're not average. Your debts aren't average. Your body isn't average. Your marriage, your dreams, your fears. None of it is average. So why would you use an average strategy? Let me show you what the smart retirees see that everyone else misses. There's something that scares people away from filing at 62 for absolutely no reason. It's called the earnings test, and it sounds terrifying. If you're collecting Social Security before your full retirement age and you're still working, the government withholds $1 for every $2 you earn above a certain threshold. In 2025, that threshold is around $22,320. So if you're earning $30,000 at a part-time job, the math says you'd lose about $3,840 a year in benefits. And when people hear that, they panic. They think, well, I can't file at 62 if I'm still working. They'll take my money. But here's what they don't tell you. That money isn't gone. It's not a penalty. It's not a tax. It's held. When you reach your full retirement age, your monthly benefit gets recalculated upward to account for every single dollar that was withheld. Every one of them. Think of it like lending money to a friend who pays you back with interest. Except this friend is the federal government, and the payback is a permanent raise on your monthly check for the rest of your life. Marcus knew this. He filed at 62 and kept working part-time at a friend's garage, pulling in about $30,000 a year. Yes, some of his benefits were withheld. But at 67, his monthly check quietly jumped. He didn't lose anything. He just lent it back to the system temporarily. And the system paid him back with a permanent increase. That's not a penalty. That's a strategy hiding in plain sight. Now here's why that matters even more than you think. Because while Marcus was handling the earnings test, there was a much more dangerous threat sitting in his mailbox. Do you know what's more expensive than a reduced Social Security check? A credit card charging you 24% interest while you wait for a bigger check. Let that land for a second. The average American over 60 carries roughly $7,800 in credit card debt. That might not sound catastrophic. But 24% interest doesn't sleep. It doesn't take weekends off. If you're waiting 5 years to file at 67, hoping for a larger benefit, that $7,800 doesn't sit still. It grows. It compounds. By the time you finally start collecting, you could owe $10,000, $12,000, maybe more. And that larger Social Security check you waited for? A chunk of it goes straight to the credit card company. Now flip the script. What if Marcus filed at 62, took that $1,950 a month, and aimed every spare dollar at his debt? In 4 to 6 months, the credit cards are gone. The helic is gone. The monthly minimum payments eating into his savings, gone. That's not just better math. That's a different life. That's sleeping through the night without a knot in your stomach. That's waking up on a Tuesday morning and realizing, for the first time in decades, that you owe nothing to anyone. So Marcus eliminated his debt. But that created a new problem he hadn't expected. Because between 62 and 65, there's a 3-year window that can financially destroy you if you're not prepared. And it has nothing to do with Social Security itself. It's about health insurance. Medicare doesn't start until 65. And if you retire at 62, which millions of Americans do, you're on your own for coverage. That means buying insurance through the marketplace or paying out of pocket. Depending on your state, your age, and your health, private insurance can cost anywhere from $800 to $1,500 a month per person. That's $9,600 to $18,000 a year. For 3 years, you could be staring at $36,000 to $54,000 just to keep yourself insured. Now think about what Social Security at 62 does in that picture. That $1,950 a month Marcus collects. It covers most or all of that insurance premium. That check isn't just income. It's his health insurance payment. And here's what keeps me up at night when I think about people who delay. One medical emergency without coverage. Just one. A fall. An infection. An unexpected diagnosis. That can erase 10 years of discipline saving in a single billing cycle. Filing at 62 isn't about getting less money per month. It's about making sure a hospital bill doesn't become a life sentence. But here's where it gets really interesting. Because filing at 62 doesn't just protect you from medical bills. It can actually make you money. And I don't mean from Social Security itself. There's a strategy that sounds complicated at first but becomes blindingly obvious once you see it. It's called a Roth-conversion window. Think of it like this. Imagine you have a bucket of water labeled taxable later. Every year, the government is going to force you to pour some out and pay taxes on whatever spills. But right now, there's a brief window where you can quietly transfer that water into a different bucket. One labeled tax-free forever. And the transfer fee is a fraction of what it'll cost you later. Here's how it actually works. Between the time you retire and the time your required minimum distributions kick in, usually around age 73, there's often a stretch of years where your taxable income is unusually low. No paycheck, no RMDs yet. Just whatever you pull from savings. That low-income window is gold. Because during that time, you can convert money from a traditional IRA into a Roth IRA at a much lower tax rate. Maybe 12%, maybe 22%, instead of the 32% or higher you might pay later when the government forces money out of your accounts. But here's the catch. You still need income to live on while you're converting. You can't eat a tax strategy. And that's exactly where Social Security at 62 comes in. Creates a floor. Enough to cover your essentials so you can afford to convert without raiding the very accounts you're trying to protect. Imagine converting $50,000 a year for 5 years. That's $250,000 moved into a Roth. Growing tax-free. Withdrawable tax-free. And if that money grows at 7% annually for the next 15 years, you're looking at nearly $690,000 that the IRS will never touch. That's not a financial trick. That's a legal, strategic use of a window that closes the moment your RMDs begin. And it only works if you have income to lean on while you're doing it. Now, everything I've talked about so far assumes you had someone else signing your paychecks for the past few decades. But what if you didn't? What if you built something yourself? Because the next reason might be the most personal one yet. And it's the one most financial advisors will never bring up. If you've spent your life building a business, you know something most employees never learn. There's no pension waiting. No employer match on a 401k. No HR department handing you a retirement package with a bow on it. For 40 years, you were the retirement plan. You were the safety net. Marcus knew this feeling intimately. He ran his shop for 4 decades. No corporate benefits. No matching contributions. Just him, his hands, and whatever the business brought in. And every year he kept that shop open past the point where he wanted to stop. He did it for one reason. Not passion. Not purpose. Income. Because without Social Security, closing the shop meant closing the faucet. No revenue. No paycheck. Nothing. Filing at 62 changed that equation entirely. It gave Marcus what no client, no contract, no busy season ever could. Consistency. A check that showed up every month whether he worked or not. And that check didn't just pay bills. It gave him permission. Permission to let go of the thing that had defined him for 40 years. Not because he failed at it, but because he'd finally earned the right to walk away. For entrepreneurs, delaying Social Security means extending the very thing they're trying to escape, the pressure to keep earning. Filing at 62 isn't quitting. It's graduating. But here's something Marcus didn't know until his divorce attorney mentioned it years ago. And it involves a rule that most Americans have never heard of. One that could be worth thousands of dollars a year to someone you know. If your marriage lasted at least 10 years and ended in divorce, Social Security has a provision that could fundamentally change your retirement. It's called the ex-spouse benefit. And it means you may be able to collect up to 50% of your former spouse's full retirement age benefit. Even if they've remarried, even if you haven't spoken to them in years. Your filing doesn't affect their check at all. This is separate money. Let me tell you about Linda. She was married for 18 years, spent most of that time raising 3 kids, working part-time when she could, building a home while her husband built a career. After the divorce, Linda re-entered the workforce, but her earnings were modest. Her own Social Security benefit at 62? About $980 a month. Barely enough to cover rent. But when she learned about the ex-spouse benefit, everything shifted. Based on her former husband's earnings record, she qualified for $1,480 a month. That's a 50% increase. Not because she asked for anything from her ex. Not because he lost a penny. But because the system had a provision she didn't know existed. The conditions are straightforward. Married at least 10 years. Divorced for at least 2 consecutive years. At least 62. Currently unmarried. If you check those boxes, this isn't taking from anyone. It's claiming what was always set aside for you. Linda didn't just increase her income by knowing this rule. She changed her entire retirement trajectory with a single phone call. So we've talked about protecting yourself from debt, from medical bills, from taxes, from the grind of self-employment, from benefits you didn't know you had. But what if the most powerful reason to file at 62 has nothing to do with you at all? Here's a question almost no one asks when planning retirement. What happens to your money after you're gone? Not your Social Security that mostly ends when you do, but your savings, your investments, your home, the things you spent a lifetime building. Meet the Nguyen's. Both 62, both ready to retire. They've got a portfolio worth about $600,000, a paid-off house, and 2 adult children starting families of their own. If the Nguyen's retire and fund their lifestyle entirely from their portfolio, withdrawing roughly $2,000 a month, that $600,000 has a shelf life. 25 years, give or take. By their mid-80s it could be gone. And when they pass, their children inherit whatever's left, which might be very little. But what if the Nguyen's file for Social Security at 62 and use that combined income, roughly $3,500 a month between them, to cover their day-to-day expenses? Suddenly, the portfolio barely gets touched, keeps growing, compounding, quietly building something that has nothing to do with Social Security and everything to do with a single decision made at 62. Over 20 years, that untouched $600,000, even at a modest 5% return, could grow to over $1.5 million. That's not inheritance planning in the traditional sense. That's generational wealth created by one strategic choice. Think of it like planting a tree. You could chop it down every year for firewood and stay warm. Or you could find another source of warmth and let that tree grow until it becomes a forest your grandchildren can sit under. Now, you might be thinking, that all sounds great, but what about inflation? What about my money losing value every single year? Wouldn't a bigger check later be worth more? Here's what happened in 2022. Inflation hit 9.1%. Grocery bills jumped overnight. Gas prices made people rethink every trip. Energy costs climbed. And you know what else jumped that year? Social Security payments. By 8.7%. One of the largest cost of living adjustments in 4 decades. Social Security is one of the very few income sources in retirement that automatically adjusts for inflation. Your pension, if you have one, probably doesn't. A fixed annuity doesn't. The interest on your savings account barely keeps up. But Social Security has a built-in mechanism called COLA, the cost of living adjustment, that recalculates your benefit every year based on actual inflation data. Now think about what that means if you file at 62. You're not just starting your income stream earlier. You're starting your inflation protection earlier. That $1,950 at 62 becomes $2,028 after a year of 4% COLA. Then $2,109. Then $2,193. It's not dramatic year to year, but over a decade or two, the compounding effect is quietly massive. However, here's what most people miss. Every year you delay filing is another year without that adjustment working in your favor. Those years of inflation protection don't accumulate somewhere waiting for you. They're gone. The question isn't just how much the check will be. It's how soon that shield starts protecting you. And the final reason, it might be the most important one of all, because it has nothing to do with money. Let me ask you something no financial advisor will ever ask. How are you sleeping? Not figuratively, literally. Are you lying awake at 2 a.m. running numbers in your head? Are you refreshing the Social Security website for the 3rd time this week? Trying to squeeze one more percentage point out of a decision that's been consuming you for months? Because here's what the spreadsheets won't tell you. Financial anxiety at retirement age is linked to higher blood pressure, chronic insomnia, increased rates of depression, and a measurably weakened immune system. The stress of optimizing this one decision can, in a very real and clinical sense, shorten the very life you're trying to financially protect. There's a Japanese concept called ikigai, your reason for being. It's the intersection of what you love, what the world needs, what you're good at, and what you can live on. And nowhere in that concept, nowhere, does it say, optimize your Social Security benefit to the last possible dollar. Sometimes the smartest financial decision isn't the most mathematically perfect one. It's the one that gives you peace. The one that lets you stop calculating and start living. Marcus filed at 62. His financial advisor told him he was leaving money on the table. And Marcus said something I'll never forget. He said, "I'm not leaving money on the table. I'm taking my life off the table." He closed his shop that spring, bought a used RV with 60,000 miles on it, and he spent his first year of retirement driving across the country with his wife. They saw the Grand Canyon at sunrise. They ate barbecue in Memphis. They sat on a beach in Florida and didn't check a single account balance. No spreadsheet told him to do that. His gut did. And his gut was right. So where does all of this leave you? Before you make this decision, ask yourself 4 questions. 1. Do I have high-interest debt that's costing me more than a delayed benefit would earn? 2. Do I need health coverage between now and 65 that Social Security could help pay for? 3. Am I self-employed or without a pension, relying solely on my own savings? 4. Is the stress of waiting genuinely affecting my health, my sleep, or my relationships? If you answered yes to 2 or more of those, filing at 62 isn't just reasonable. It deserves serious consideration. Now, to be fair, there are absolutely situations where waiting makes more sense. If you're in excellent health with a family history of longevity. If you have a strong pension or significant passive income. If your portfolio is large enough to cover your expenses without touching Social Security for years. In those cases, delaying can act like a guaranteed return of 7 to 8% annually. And that's hard to beat. This isn't about convincing you to file at 62. It's about making sure you're not afraid to file at 62 if it's right for you. 3 things to carry with you. First, don't let a single number decide your life. Your retirement is bigger than a monthly benefit amount. Look at the full picture. Your debt, your taxes, your health, your family, your peace of mind. Second, every situation is different. What works for your neighbor, your coworker, your brother-in-law might be exactly wrong for you. Run your own numbers. Factor in your own life. And third, give yourself permission to make a decision based on the life you're actually living right now. Not the life a calculator assumes you'll have. Not a theoretical life. Your real one. Social Security was never meant to be a puzzle. It was meant to be a promise. A promise that after decades of working, contributing, showing up, something would be there for you. And if you're 62 and that promise is calling, maybe it's time to answer. Not because a formula told you to, not because a YouTube video convinced you, but because you looked at your life, really looked at it, and decided you're ready.